The Lagos State government is in the process of acquiring a historic wood carving called Landis Stool, which was taken from Nigeria in 1830. In the same vein, the Commissioner for Tourism, Mr. Steve Ayorinde, has announced that the J.K. Randle Center for Yoruba Culture and History in Onikon, when commissioned in May, will be a befitting gallery space to host Nigeria's artifacts.
In 2018, the Lagos state government flagged off the reconstruction of the J.K. Randle Center for Yoruba Culture and History as part of a grand plan to turn the Onikon axis into a critical tourist hub.
We're here for the groundbreaking ceremony of the new J.K. Randle Center for Yoruba Culture and History. In the past, the center provided recreational services to the Lagos populace, but the new J.K. Randle Center will do a lot more.
This is what the J.K. Randle Center looks like now. Work is in progress, and the State Commissioner for Tourism is optimistic that it will be inaugurated before a new administration takes over.
The J.K. Randle Hall used to be there. What the governor is just doing is to, after the agreement with the Randle family, is to turn it into a proper 21st century facility as a home, as a new art space, as a home for art and culture. You may not necessarily call it a museum as such, but as a matter of fact, it will be like a museum. Actually, it's a center that will be devoted essentially to propagating the culture and history of the Yoruba. But there will be exhibitions there. By the time that it is opened in May, because the place is about 85% complete, it will be ready as a facility by in May, when the governor will be leaving. But of course, it will require a few more things to be done by the incoming administration. And because it's wholly going to be devoted, to everything Yoruba, in terms of performances, in terms of exhibition, in terms of decoration, what we have done is that we have engaged possibly the best outfit in the world in terms of building museums. Even though, as I said, this is a cultural center, but it's a cultural center almost like a museum. So the RAP, Applebaum and Associates in London, which built the Obasanjo Library in Abeokuta. And mind you, Obasanjo Library is also like possibly the best museum, in quote, that we have in Nigeria at the moment. So it's at that level as far as, facilities of, that nature in Nigeria is concerned, that we are envisaging that the J.K. Randle Center will be. Rappapopam Associates are also involved in possibly most of the major museum projects all over the world. They're so world-class, they are so well-known, and they're the ones delivering on the J.K. Randle Center. And luckily for Lagos State, Lagos was part of the colloquium that the British Museum in London had last week. Lagos was part of it. Edo State was part of it, because Edo State is also planning a royal museum, and Ghana for the Osu Castle, they were part of it. So you will have a world-class facility in the heart of Lagos in Onikon, where, as you are aware, the National Museum is, almost opposite it. The Museum Center, is adjacent to it. Luckily, again, for Lagos State, the old the old presidential lodge, that His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, has released to Lagos, is also going to be turned to the Lagos History Center, which is not far from there. And of course, the proposed Lagos Museum, which we believe that the turning of the sword will be done later this year, and then the building can happen, will also happen there. You are aware, of course, that the Ford Foundation has given us a takeoff grant of $600,000 for the design of the Lagos Museum, which is quite distinct from the J.K. Randle Center. So by the time that is complete, you will begin to see how the cultural district that the governor, envisioned will begin to take shape with a J.K. Randle Center, complementing the art spaces that are already there.
The good news about this upcoming edifice is that it will now house a historic wood carving called Landis Stool from the British Museum, which was taken from Nigeria in 1830.
Everybody knows that, Africa was essentially, pillaged. A number of artifacts were taken out, all the bronze heads, from Benin and other parts of Nigeria. So the call for to return most of our artworks, has been on, for a long time. A number of museums, all over Africa have been asking, for the return of, artworks that were taken from Africa. And we cannot be an exception. Part of the argument has always been that are they sure that the works, if they are returned, will be safe and secure? Were they safe and secure when they were, when they were taken from Nigeria? But of course, we believe that we also have to raise the standard of our game as far as, cultural facilities are concerned. And we believe that the J.K. Randle Center will serve as a befitting home, for not just artifacts that will be returned, but even for artworks that are here. We will also be loaning a lot of works from the National Museum, for example. And as you know, a good chunk of what you have at the National Museum, are not even on display. They are in storage. The same way that the Landis Stool in the British Museum is in storage. It's not on display. It is just there. And we're aware that it is there, and they have confirmed that it is there, and they're processing our request. So what we are saying is that if we are going to open to the world a befitting museum, in quotes, or a cultural center, we can begin to say to those who are holding our works in trust, I should say, to say that we now have facilities that can take care, of this artifact that rightly belong to us anyway. Let's begin to have them, in bits and pieces, so that a J.K. Randle Center can say, can demonstrate to the world that we can have it. Senegal has just opened, a Museum of African Heritage, which I believe, with the assistance of the Chinese, will also make a lot of requests, for works that belong to them, to be returned. The Lagos Museum project is in talks with the National Museum in Paris, for example. They have agreed to work with Lagos State in building a museum, in supplying manpower, in collaborating with us. By the time the Lagos Museum itself is completed, it means that we can say to France that some of the artifacts that are in your custody, now that we have a befitting museum, let us, begin to have them back.
The question which arises is, will the J.K. Randle Center be well utilized?
Everything Yoruba is what J.K. Randle Center would look after in terms of its culture, in terms of its history. I was opportune to be part of one of the meetings when Rapabuban and the architects, the local architects that we engage in doing the job, when they were packaging the exhibits and the things that will be contained, at the center. And the quality of the professors from across all universities in Nigeria, in America, and in Europe, who are known and celebrated scholars of Yoruba history, were brought together, to assist in putting the content that the J.K. Randle Center will project. It's a center that when students go, the sort of multimedia and everything that will be there will reawaken in people, the very essence of what, the Yoruba represent. And the idea is that Lagos State is a bona fide Yoruba state, even though it is welcoming, everybody is there, there's a potpourri going on in Lagos State, but it is still a Yoruba state. And that center will be saying that this will serve as a repository, for all Yoruba-speaking people, all over the world.
Usually, maintenance culture is called into question, but then the state government promises to cede the project to the private sector.
Maintenance is part of what you have to consider even from day one. And frankly speaking, it is not the business of government, to directly maintain it. And therefore, what we believe will be done, which is part of the plan, is to allow tested and private, managers, private sector, people to run the place and use it to generate money for government. And of course, there's an example of how this has worked. And I give the example of the Freedom Park, which, as of today, will probably be the busiest art space in Lagos, if not in Nigeria. Freedom Park, as you know, is a government project, but in a PPP, arrangement. Government supplied money for a group of architects, to turn, that disused area into something fantastic. Now, in going into its 7th year, it has been consistent, in providing quality programming for people. There's a gallery there. That's where Professor Wole Soyinka uses. Activities are going on there on a daily basis. Because after it was built, government allowed those who built it and those who envisioned how it would be to run it and then remit money to government. That is the template that I believe that we will use for the J.K. Randle Center. Let Lagos State, which Lagos State has provided the money in building it anyway. Let us now engage those who understand how museums are managed and are run, to run it for us, to publicize it, to enter into agreements that will benefit, the museum, the center, and the state. And then let the state government, make money, let remittances be made from it. By that, you will ensure that maintenance will be key, the facilities will be well run, and it will be profitable.
The Lagos State government says it is committed to developing infrastructure that will support the well-being and prosperity of the people. And when the J.K. Randle Center is completed, it is expected to serve as a catalyst for the rest of the regeneration of Lagos Island by restoring it to its former glory.